It is official, not forecast, not projected, not likely. Official. The Met Office has declared a heat wave across 8 locations in southeast England. The UK has recorded its hottest day of the year so far at 32.1 degrees Celsius on Sunday. And Monday's forecast sits at 34 degrees Celsius in Greater London and across the southeast, with the Met Office spokesperson describing temperatures getting close to 35 in May as, in their own words, pretty historic. Santon Downham in Suffolk was the first location to formally meet the heatwave criteria at approximately 11:30 a.m. on Sunday morning. Heathrow followed at 11:50 a.m., meeting its own stricter threshold of 3 consecutive days at 28 degrees Celsius. And while most people, hearing the words official heatwave, think primarily of how hot it feels outside, the formal declaration carries consequences that extend far beyond comfort. It activates institutional responses, legal frameworks, and operational protocols across health, infrastructure, and emergency services that exist specifically because the Met Office's own data has established what happens to people and systems when the threshold is crossed and held. Understanding what that declaration actually means, mechanically, legally, physiologically, is the story that sits behind the headline temperature number. The official heatwave definition that Santon Downham and Heathrow have satisfied this Sunday is precise and has been consistently applied by the Met Office across all heatwave declarations. Heatwave is declared when a location records at least 3 consecutive days with daily maximum temperatures meeting or exceeding the heatwave threshold specific to that location. Those thresholds vary across the UK in a way that reflects the different physiological and infrastructural adaptations of populations living in different regional climates. The threshold for Northern England and Wales sits at 25 degrees Celsius. The East Midlands threshold is 25 degrees Celsius. The southeast of England, including London, Kent, Surrey, Sussex, Essex, Berkshire, and the surrounding home counties, carries the highest threshold of 28 degrees Celsius. In Suffolk, where Santon Downham is located, the Met Office applies a threshold of 27 degrees Celsius. The fact that Santon Downham met this threshold first, at 11:30 a.m. on Sunday, before Heathrow's 11:50 a.m. confirmation, reflects the specific geographic and thermal characteristics of the flat East Anglian terrain that allows continental air to maintain its temperature as it moves inland away from the moderating influence of the North Sea coastline. Cambridge, which shares those East Anglian thermal characteristics, follows closely behind Santon Downham in the sequence of official heatwave declarations from this event. The Met Office spokesperson's statement that temperatures getting close to 35 degrees in May is pretty historic deserves to be read against the full weight of what historic means in this context. The current all-time UK May temperature record is 32.8 degrees Celsius, set at Camden Square in London in May 1922, a reading that has stood in the record books for 104 years, surviving every heat wave and every warm spring event that the British Isles has experienced in the intervening century. Met Office Deputy Chief Forecaster Steve Coker stated explicitly that it is likely the May and spring UK temperature records will be broken over the bank holiday weekend, with forecast temperatures surpassing the existing record of 32.8 degrees Celsius. The Sunday reading of 32.1 degrees Celsius sits 0.7 degrees below that record. Monday's forecast of 34 degrees Celsius, if verified by observations, surpasses it by 1.2 degrees. The largest margin by which the UK May record has been broken in a single step since systematic temperature measurement began. The progression from Sunday's 32.1 to a potential Monday peak, approaching 34 to 35 degrees, is not a gradual drift toward the boundary of historical norms. It is a categorical departure from anything that May in Britain has previously produced. The 6-day heatwave duration that the Met Office has confirmed the UK is now experiencing gives this event a structural character that distinguishes it from the briefer warm spells that the UK more commonly experiences. The forecast sequence confirmed by the Met Office's outlook runs as follows. Temperatures above 28 degrees across southeast England from Friday's 31 degrees Celsius, climbing to 32 degrees Celsius on Saturday, peaking at 33 degrees Celsius on Sunday before Monday's 34-degree projection, then easing to 32 degrees on Tuesday and around 28 degrees on Wednesday. 6 consecutive days at or above the heat wave threshold for the southeast. The physiological significance of that duration is the dimension that most weather coverage most consistently underestimates. A single hot day is a physiological challenge. 6 consecutive days at or above the threshold accumulates heat burden in the body without adequate overnight recovery. Because the tropical nights that the Met Office has specifically confirmed as possible during this event mean overnight temperatures may remain above 20 degrees Celsius, preventing the cardiovascular recovery and sleep restoration that cooler nights normally provide. What an official heatwave declaration actually triggers across the health and social care is the question that most people, hearing the Met Office's announcement, have not had clearly answered, and the answer is more specific and more consequential than most people realize. The amber heat health alerts that the UKHSA issued, covering all regions of England, operate in direct coordination with the Met Office's heatwave declaration. Amber alert status activates 5 documented operational consequence categories. First, a likely rise in deaths, particularly among those aged 65 and over or with health conditions with potential impacts on younger age groups. Second, a likely increase in demand for health and social care services across all affected regions. Third, internal temperatures in care settings, hospitals, care homes, residential facilities, may exceed the recommended thresholds for clinical operations, meaning the environments where the most vulnerable people receive care become thermally hostile to the people they exist to protect. Fourth, heat affecting the ability of the workforce to deliver services, acknowledging that doctors, nurses, paramedics, and care workers are themselves physiologically affected by sustained heat in ways that degrade performance. Fifth, indoor environments overheating, increasing risk to vulnerable people living independently in community settings. These 5 consequences are not theoretical risk statements. They are the documented operational outcomes of every previous Amber Alert event in England, derived from mortality and hospital admission data collected across a decade of escalating UK heat events. The Royal Ascot comparison that emerged during the current event provides the most immediate and concrete illustration of what even the pre-peak days of an official heatwave do to people at organized outdoor events. At Royal Ascot in Berkshire, an event occurring during the warm build-up to the official heatwave declaration, race organizers confirmed that dozens of attendees required medical assistance because of heat-related illness. Dozens. At a formal outdoor event where attendees are typically well-resourced, are not engaged in physical exertion, have access to facilities and shade, and are among the most economically advantaged segment of the UK population. If heat-related medical presentations are occurring at that scale at an event like Royal Ascot during the warm-up to the peak, the emergency department presentations that will accumulate across Greater London, the South East, and the Midlands on Monday's projected 34-degree peak day represent a volume of demand that the NHS trusts in those regions have been preparing for since the Amber Alerts activated. The LSHTM Imperial College modeling, projecting approximately 570 heat-related deaths across England and Wales across the 4 peak days, with 129 in London specifically, provides the mortality dimension that sits behind the Ascot attendance numbers. The British Red Cross issued its own statement in parallel with the UKHSA's Amber Alert, delivered by William Spencer, the organization's climate and first aid product manager. His framing of the risk was direct and practical. Higher temperatures can make it harder for the body to cool itself, and we all need to take care to manage the health risks of heat. Spencer specifically identified the importance of taking care while having fun with friends and family, a framing that acknowledges the cultural reality of a bank holiday heatwave, where the social and leisure context of the event works against the cautious behavior that the heat health guidance recommends. The tension between the enjoyment framing of a bank holiday and the risk management framing of an official heatwave with Amber Alert status is not a communication failure. It is the specific challenge that makes May bank holiday heatwaves more dangerous per degree of warmth than mid-July events. The population is in holiday mode, the beaches are full, the parks are crowded, and the instinct to enjoy the warmth is being acted on at scale precisely when the physiological and public health systems are at their most vulnerable to the heat's consequences. The infrastructure response to the official heatwave declaration confirms that the protocols activated by the Met Office's announcement are not limited to the health sector. Network Rail's heat management escalation reached its highest operational intensity as temperatures crossed 32 degrees Celsius on Sunday. Rail surface temperatures on fully exposed track at a 32-degree air temperature translate to surface readings approaching 52 degrees Celsius in direct sunlight, the threshold zone where lateral buckling risk in continuously welded steel becomes a direct operational constraint on service delivery. The BBC confirmed that the 6-day heatwave outlook with temperatures forecast to remain at or near 28 degrees Celsius. Through Wednesday means that rail infrastructure in the southeast will be operating under continuous thermal stress for the full duration of the official heatwave event without any overnight cooling, sufficient to return surface temperatures to the safe baseline. The 2003 event's 137 rail buckles at 2.5 million and the 2022 event's suspended Thameslink and Great Northern services provide the documented precedent for what sustained multi-day heatwave conditions produce on a network that was built for the mean temperature of a British summer rather than the upper tail that official heatwave declarations now represent with increasing frequency. The water resource emergency that runs in parallel with the official heatwave declaration adds a dimension that does not appear in any heat health alert, but that will shape the consequences of this event across months rather than days. The Environment Agency's monitoring data confirmed that England entered this heat wave, carrying one of its most severe spring soil moisture deficits in nearly 7 decades. Southeast Water formally stated that Ardingly Reservoir, its primary surface water source for 280,000 customers across West Sussex, Surrey, and Kent, regions now inside the official heatwave zone, entered May at 64% of capacity against a seasonal norm of 92%, and will not recover before the summer demand peak. Each day of official heatwave conditions at 32 to 34 degrees Celsius adds evaporative losses from that reservoir and from the chalk aquifers underpinning southeast England's groundwater supply at rates that deepen the existing deficit materially. The 14-day statutory consultation window before a temporary use ban, a hosepipe ban, can legally take effect means that Southeast Water, Thames Water, Anglian Water, and Southern Water are making their formal notification decisions this week, while temperatures are still at their peak, because the regulatory process requires them to act 2 weeks ahead of operational need. An official heatwave declaration triggers not just health protocols and infrastructure responses. It triggers the water company drought management calendar, accelerating the timeline toward the supply restrictions that the spring deficit and the summer demand peak were already pointing toward before the 32-degree Sunday reading confirmed the heat wave's formal status. The UN Secretary General's framing of the broader global context in which this official UK heatwave sits was unambiguous and direct. Extreme heat is no longer a rare event. It has become the new normal. Antonio Guterres made that statement in response to the 2025 European summer heatwave sequence. It applies with equal precision to a May 2026 event that has produced the UK's first official heatwave of the year before June has begun, broken the hottest day of the year record multiple times in succession, and placed the 104-year-old May temperature record of 32.8 degrees under direct threat from a Monday forecast of 34 degrees that the Met Office's own deputy chief forecaster has described as historic. The Royal Meteorological Society's attribution research confirmed that the probability of exceeding the UK May temperature record has increased approximately 3 times compared to a natural climate without human-induced warming. The Met Office's own climate science confirmed that it is virtually certain that human influence has increased the occurrence and intensity of extreme heat events such as this. Official heatwave. Declarations in May. Multiple record-breaking peaks within the same event. Pretty historic in the Met Office spokesperson's measured language. Something categorically new in the language of the data. The practical response that the British Red Cross, UKHSA, and Met Office are coordinating under the official heatwave declaration is specific and directly actionable for every person in the affected regions. Keep your home cool by closing windows and blinds on the sunny side of the building from early morning, ideally before 9 a.m., trapping overnight cooled air before external temperatures climb past the interior baseline. Drink water consistently through the day before thirst signals arrive. By the time strong thirst registers, the body is already in mild dehydration that increases cardiovascular strain during sustained heat exposure. Stay out of direct sun between 11 a.m. and 3 p.m. when UV intensity and air temperature peak simultaneously. UV index levels of 7 or above are forecast across southern England during the official heatwave peak days, meaning unprotected skin can burn in 15 minutes, and the same UV exposure that causes immediate sunburn also accumulates the DNA damage that Cancer Research UK has linked to the UK's record-high melanoma incidence of 20,000 cases in 2022. Know the difference between heat exhaustion, tiredness, heavy sweating, nausea, faintness, and heat stroke, which is a medical emergency characterized by confusion, hot, dry skin, loss of consciousness, and cessation of sweating. Heat stroke requires an immediate 999 call. Heat exhaustion can be managed by moving to a cool place, hydrating, and lying down, with legs raised, but requires active monitoring because it can progress to heat stroke if not acted on. And check on elderly neighbors, relatives, and vulnerable people in person, not by message, but by making actual contact, because the populations at risk from an official heat wave are the populations least likely to communicate. They need help before their condition has already deteriorated past the point of easy self-management. The declaration is official. The Amber Alert is active. The record is being challenged. What happens next in the data depends on the atmosphere. What happens next in the mortality statistics depends, in part, on what every person in the affected region does with the information they now have.